Did you know there are countries where Americans simply can't travel? While the world feels smaller with each passing year, some nations have placed restrictions so strict that US citizens are effectively barred from entering. These rules aren't random, they're shaped by complex reasons, from political conflicts to safety concerns and everything in between. In today's video, we're diving into the top 10 countries Americans aren't allowed to visit in 2024 and 2025. Each nation has its unique story, filled with history, challenges, and the reasons behind its restricted access. But don't worry, we've got a treat for you. Stick around until the end to discover one unexpected country that's incredibly safe and welcoming to US travelers, an ideal destination amidst all the uncertainty. Now, let's explore these fascinating and forbidden destinations together. Russia. Russia, with its rich cultural heritage and vast landscapes, might seem like an alluring destination. However, the reality for Americans in 2024 and 2025 paints a different picture. As tensions between the US and Russia escalate, the risks for American travelers have reached alarming levels. One of the biggest dangers is the potential for arbitrary detention. The United States Department of State has warned Russia's government has intensified its surveillance of foreign nationals, particularly Americans, in light of ongoing political conflicts. Everyday interactions like speaking with locals or taking photos in public places can be misconstrued by authorities, leading to unwarranted questioning or even arrests. The US government has issued strong travel warnings, citing limited support from the US Embassy in Moscow. With diplomatic ties strained, Americans caught in legal or political trouble often find themselves with little assistance. To make matters worse, Russia's strict laws and heightened security measures create an oppressive environment for travelers. Even minor infractions like possessing certain electronics or discussing sensitive topics can land visitors in serious legal trouble. But the risks aren't just political. The current climate in Russia also presents safety concerns. The government's emphasis on internal monitoring means American tourists may feel constantly watched or targeted. This sense of unease overshadows the country's beautiful architecture, such as the Kremlin and St. Basil's Cathedral, or the breathtaking natural landscapes of Siberia and Lake Baikal. For now, the dangers outweigh the rewards. Until relations between the two nations improve, Russia remains a highly restricted destination for Americans. Venezuela. Venezuela is a country of striking contrasts. Known for its vibrant culture and stunning landscapes, it once attracted tourists from all over the world. But for Americans in 2024 and 2025, the situation is far from inviting. Economic struggles, political instability, and high crime rates have turned Venezuela into one of the riskiest places to visit. The US government has classified Venezuela under a do not travel advisory. The primary concern? Safety. Crime rates in cities like Caracas are some of the highest in the world, with kidnappings, robberies, and violent assaults being all too common. Foreigners, particularly Americans, are often targeted due to their perceived wealth. On top of this, the country's infrastructure is crumbling. Hospitals lack essential supplies, and police presence is scarce in many areas. In an emergency, basic services like medical assistance or law enforcement are unreliable at best. For Americans, these challenges make even short stays perilous. The strained relationship between the US and Venezuela also adds a political layer to the danger. American citizens have been detained in the past, accused of spying or interfering in local affairs. These incidents highlight the fragile state of diplomacy between the two nations. Despite Venezuela's natural beauty, including Angel Falls and the Andes Mountains, the risks far outweigh the rewards. Until significant changes are made to improve both safety and political relations, Venezuela will remain a no-go zone for American travelers. Iraq is home to one of the oldest civilizations in the world, with a cultural history that stretches back thousands of years. However, in 2024 and 2025, it's one of the most dangerous places for Americans to visit. Decades of conflict have left the nation scarred, and although some improvements have been made, the risks remain high. One of the most significant threats comes from terrorism. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, armed groups continue to operate in many regions, targeting civilians, local authorities, and foreign nationals. Americans in particular are viewed as high-value targets, which makes the risks even greater. Kidnappings, bombings, and other forms of violence are a constant concern. Political instability further complicates matters. Various militant groups maintain strongholds across the country, making travel within Iraq highly unpredictable. Even areas that might seem safe on the surface can quickly become dangerous. The lack of reliable infrastructure and emergency services adds another layer of difficulty for foreigners. While Iraq's archaeological treasures, like the ancient city of Babylon, offer unparalleled historical value, visiting these sites come with significant risks. Travelers must navigate checkpoints, avoid certain regions, and remain on high alert at all times. The US government strongly advises against travel to Iraq, and with good reason. Limited diplomatic presence and a volatile security situation mean Americans face immense challenges should an emergency arise. For those dreaming of experiencing Iraq's rich history, it's wise to wait until the situation stabilizes. If you're finding this video insightful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating travel content. Your support helps us bring you these deep dives into the world's most intriguing and restricted destinations. And remember, stick around for the bonus country at the end. You won't want to miss it. Iran. Iran is a country that captivates the imagination with its rich culture, stunning architecture, and historical significance. Yet for Americans in 2024 and 2025, Iran poses significant risks that make it one of the most challenging places to visit. The strained political relationship between the US and Iran has led to an environment where American travelers are often viewed with intense suspicion. One of the biggest dangers is the risk of arbitrary detention. Over the years, CNN has reported that several Americans have been detained on charges of espionage or politically motivated accusations. These incidents are not isolated. They reflect the ongoing tensions between the two governments. But the risks don't stop there. Iran closely monitors foreign visitors, and Americans face heightened scrutiny compared to tourists from other nations. Actions as simple as taking photos in public or engaging in conversations about politics can attract unwanted attention. The consequences can be severe, ranging from harassment to legal action. Adding to the challenges, the US government has very limited diplomatic presence in Iran, making it nearly impossible for American citizens to get help in emergencies. Whether it's a legal issue or a health crisis, assistance is often out of reach, leaving travelers to fend for themselves in a highly restrictive environment. Despite these challenges, Iran's allure remains undeniable. The breathtaking mosques of Isfahan, the ancient ruins of Persepolis, and the bustling bazaars of Tehran hold a deep appeal for adventurous travelers. However, the risks associated with visiting Iran far outweigh the rewards for Americans, at least for now. Until relations between the two countries improve, Iran will remain a high-risk destination best admired from afar. Afghanistan. Afghanistan, a land of rugged beauty and rich cultural heritage, once held a certain mystique for travelers seeking adventure, but in 2024 and 2025, it stands as one of the most dangerous countries for Americans to visit. Following the US military withdrawal in 2021 and the Taliban's return to power, Afghanistan has become an unpredictable and highly volatile environment. One of the most significant dangers for Americans in Afghanistan is the risk of terrorism. Congress reports show that extremist groups, including the Taliban and ISIS affiliates, operate with relative impunity, targeting foreigners and locals alike. Kidnappings and armed attacks are common, and Americans are often considered high-value targets due to their perceived political significance. The instability affects every corner of the country, making no region truly safe. Infrastructure is severely limited, and basic services like healthcare and emergency support are practically non-existent. For Americans, this means even minor issues can escalate into life-threatening situations. Adding to the difficulty is Afghanistan's complex political situation. The lack of a centralized, stable government means there's no reliable system to ensure traveler safety. Foreigners face additional risks from criminal organizations and local militias, which operate outside any formal legal framework. While Afghanistan's natural landscapes, snow-capped mountains, ancient forts, and vibrant bazaars remain breathtaking, the reality on the ground makes it nearly impossible to visit safely. The US government strongly advises against all travel to Afghanistan, and with good reason. Until significant security and political improvements are made, Afghanistan will remain off-limits for Americans. North Korea. North Korea, often called the Hermit Kingdom, is shrouded in mystery and intrigue. However, for Americans, it's more than just a mysterious destination. It's completely off-limits. Since 2017, a US government travel ban has prohibited Americans from entering North Korea due to extreme risks, and this policy remains in place for 2024 and 2025. The primary danger for Americans in North Korea is the risk of arbitrary detention. According to BBC reports, the North Korean government has a history of using foreign nationals, particularly Americans, as political leverage. Even minor infractions such as leaving a hotel without permission or photographing restricted areas can lead to severe penalties, including imprisonment and forced labor. North Korea's legal system offers little to no protection for foreigners. Americans who have been detained in the past face harsh interrogations and prolonged imprisonment under grueling conditions. The lack of transparency and the absence of a diplomatic presence make it nearly impossible to resolve such situations. Even beyond the risks of detention, traveling in North Korea comes with extreme restrictions. Visitors are closely monitored at all times and must adhere to a strict itinerary approved by the government. Any deviation can result in serious consequences, making it a highly controlled and nerve-wracking experience. While the country's cultural sites such as the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun and the Demilitarized Zone might intrigue some, the risks for Americans are insurmountable. Until diplomatic relations improve and the travel ban is lifted, North Korea will remain one of the most restricted countries for US citizens. Yemen. Yemen, a country steeped in history and rich traditions, once attracted adventurous travelers eager to explore its ancient architecture and vibrant culture. However, in 2024 and 2025, Yemen is one of the most perilous destinations for Americans due to its ongoing civil war and humanitarian crisis. The country's prolonged conflict has created an environment of extreme instability. As noted by ACLED data, armed groups operate without restriction. Terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, and ISIS remain active. For Americans, the threat of kidnappings, targeted attacks, and violent crimes is especially high. Foreigners are often viewed as high-value targets, with kidnappings frequently used for ransom or political leverage. Beyond the dangers of violence, Yemen's infrastructure has been severely damaged by years of conflict. Hospitals and emergency services are barely functional, leaving travelers with little to no access to medical care in case of an emergency. Basic necessities such as clean water and electricity are often scarce, compounding the risks for anyone visiting the region. The US government strongly advises against all travel to Yemen. Without a stable government or a reliable law enforcement presence, American travelers have no safety net. The risks extend to nearly every part of the country, making it one of the most dangerous places for US citizens. While Yemen's unique landscapes and historical sites, like the ancient city of Shibam and the Socotra archipelago, might seem enticing, the realities on the ground make travel nearly impossible. Until the country achieves a significant level of stability, Yemen will remain off-limits for Americans. Libya, a nation of stunning Mediterranean coastlines and ancient ruins, has faced ongoing turmoil since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. For Americans in 2024 and 2025, the country's political instability and violence make it a no-go zone. The primary risks for travelers in Libya stem from its fragmented political landscape. Council on Foreign Relations noted that competing factions and militia groups control different parts of the country, creating a highly unpredictable and dangerous environment. For Americans, the threat of terrorism and kidnappings is particularly severe, as foreign nationals are often targeted for ransom or political bargaining. Infrastructure in Libya is almost non-existent in many areas, further complicating matters. Basic services such as reliable healthcare and emergency support are unavailable in most regions. This lack of resources means that even minor issues can quickly escalate into life-threatening situations. Libya's rich cultural heritage, including sites like Leptis Magna and the Sahara Desert, is overshadowed by the extreme risks of traveling in the country. The US government has issued a strong "do not travel" advisory for Libya, warning Americans of the dangers posed by terrorism, armed conflict, and criminal activity. For now, the allure of Libya's history and natural beauty cannot outweigh the significant dangers, Until there's a stable government and a marked improvement in security, Libya will remain a highly restricted destination for Americans. Syria. Syria, once a cradle of ancient civilization, is now synonymous with conflict and devastation. For Americans, the country's ongoing civil war and instability make it one of the most dangerous places to visit in 2024 and 2025. The risks in Syria are multifaceted. Terrorist organizations and extremist groups operate across the country, targeting civilians and foreign nationals alike. Americans are particularly vulnerable to kidnappings, with hostages often used for ransom or political leverage. The destruction caused by years of war has left much of Syria in ruins. Infrastructure is virtually non-existent in many areas, and essential services like healthcare, transportation, and law enforcement are severely lacking. For American travelers, this means there is little to no support in the event of an emergency. Despite these challenges, Syria's historical significance remains undeniable. Sites like the ancient city of Palmyra and the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus hold immense cultural and historical value. However, the risks of traveling in such a volatile environment far outweigh the rewards. The U.S. government strongly advises against travel to Syria. With limited diplomatic presence and an unpredictable security situation, the dangers for Americans are simply too great. Until significant progress is made in stabilizing the country, Syria will remain off-limits for U.S. citizens. Somalia. Somalia, with its rich cultural history and strategic location along the Indian Ocean, has long fascinated the world. But for Americans, the reality of visiting Somalia in 2024 and 2025 is fraught with danger. Decades of civil war and instability have turned the country into one of the most hazardous destinations. Piracy, political instability, and terrorism are the primary threats facing Americans in Somalia. Extremist groups like Al-Shabaab operate freely in many regions, targeting both locals and foreign nationals. Kidnappings and violent attacks are common, with Americans often seen as high-value targets. The absence of a centralized government exacerbates these risks. Law enforcement and emergency services are virtually non-existent, leaving travelers with no support in times of crisis. Even navigating the country's roads can be perilous, as militias control many territories and extortion at checkpoints is widespread. Despite its challenges, Somalia's landscapes, including its beautiful coastlines and ancient cities, offer glimpses of its potential. However, the risks involved make it nearly impossible for Americans to experience these attractions safely. The U.S. government advises against all travel to Somalia, citing the extreme dangers of violence, piracy, and terrorism. Until the country achieves a significant level of political stability and security, Somalia will remain one of the most restricted places for U.S. citizens. And now, as promised, here's the bonus country, Bhutan. Unlike the restricted nations we've discussed, Bhutan welcomes travelers with open arms, including Americans. Nestled in the Himalayas, this small kingdom is known for its breathtaking landscapes, rich culture, and commitment to sustainable tourism. Bhutan limits the number of tourists each year to preserve its natural beauty and cultural heritage, making it a serene and safe destination. With its focus on gross national happiness, Bhutan offers a unique travel experience far removed from the chaos of the modern world. For Americans seeking an extraordinary and peaceful escape, Bhutan is a destination to cherish. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the 10 countries where Americans aren't allowed in 2024 and 2025. We hope this video has given you valuable insights into global travel risks and the complexities behind these restrictions. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating travel content. And if you're ready to dream about brighter destinations, check out our next video, 10 Most Beautiful Cities in California. Until then, travel safely and responsibly. We'll see you in the next adventure.